first slide, I've introduced our local NHS representatives, and we're going to go and talk about the proposal soon on treatment to help try and have a baby, and we'll have a question and answer session, and we'll remind you at the end how to have your say through our survey. Thank you very much. Next slide. So first of all, why are we proposing a new policy? Well, the local NHS use policies to decide what treatments people can have and who can have them, and fertility policy is one of those policies that we have normally in NHS ICBs, or what we're called CCGs. We used to have 5 different fertility policies in our area because we had 7 CCGs, and we had, as a result, 1 policy for 3 areas, Barking, Dagenham, Havering and Redbridge, and then a policy each for City and Hackney, Tower Hamlets, Newham and Waltham Forest. And so therefore we ended up with 5 different policies with all slightly different arrangements in them and proposals. So what we are trying to do today is to discuss with you about how we've drafted a new policy, which will be a single policy for the whole of North East London. Just to be clear, we are proposing a new policy which will increase the amount of treatment that you are likely to have and improve access to those treatments. And we want to make it sure that wherever you live in North East London, you're able to have the same fertility treatment if you need help getting pregnant. The proposals will require some increased investment, but we believe that's important, and this area is important. We want to make sure that the policy addresses the inequities that we're currently seeing across North East London. Lovely, next slide, thank you. So, so as you all know, the NHS and NEL ICB do not have unlimited budget. So our priority for NHS treatment is for those who have medical problems. So in common with the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, as you might know, it's NICE, we focused on fertility treatments and diagnosis for people with a medical issue, medical fertility problem. So what we've done in order to draft this policy is we worked with GPs and fertility experts from our local providers and from Guy's and St Thomas's, and we've worked with them to shape the policy by reviewing all the different kind of guidance, the things from NICE, the guidance from the HFEA, which is the Human Fertilisation and Embryology Authority, who are the regulators for fertility care, and we've taken that and drafted a policy. We've used feedback from local people to shape it, to make sure the information of the policy is clear and it's inclusive, and we make sure that you can understand what we've tried to put in the policy. So the policy is available on our website, and we'll give you links to that later on. If you want to move on to the next slide. So the policy covers assisted conception treatments, which examples of that are IVF and IUI. I'm hoping that people do understand the difference, but maybe we'll just, Anju will give you a little bit of an explanation of what IVF and IUI as we go through each of the different slides. So while we're not trying to make changes that will save money, we do need to make best use of the money. So we have focused on assisted conception treatments. We have looked at these different areas on the slide, who can get help to get NHS help to get pregnant, and that's really around the criteria for the people who are accessing treatment, and how many cycles you can get and at what age. We've also looked at the funding of intrauterine insemination, which is IUI is short for, which is a type of artificial insemination for certain people, and we've looked at the funding of donor eggs and sperm as well. We've also been looking at fertility preservation. That's how long your eggs or sperm or embryos can be stored for people who are eligible. And then we've also looking at ovarian reserve criteria. Anju will give you a little bit more detail about what that means, but effectively it's the number and quality of eggs remaining in the ovaries, which is measured by some tests. And so that gives us a good prediction of how successful IVF would be. So I'm now going to hand over to Anju, who's going to take you through each of the different areas we've been looking at.
Thanks, Alison. So I'll talk you through each area in turn. So the first is who can get NHS funded help to get pregnant. So that will depend on meeting certain eligibility criteria, which will include how long you've been trying to get pregnant, having a certain weight and BMI, because the success of fertility treatment depends a lot on the BMI of the person trying to get pregnant. What is your existing circumstance, i.e. whether or not you have existing children in the partnership or not, age, and whether or not you smoke. So overall, as Alison has said, we are increasing access to treatment. Where we are remaining same as the existing fertility policies, we are already in keeping with NICE guidance. In other areas, we are increasing access to meet the NICE guidance in most cases. Age, currently the existing policies vary throughout Northeast London, and the age limit for people to get help for getting pregnant is 39 to 41 years. We are now increasing it to 43 years. Next slide, please. So how many IVF cycles you can have and at what age? So just to clarify, an IVF cycle, a complete IVF cycle, is the introduction of all the embryos that have been harvested or produced during one cycle. And usually 1 or 2 healthy embryos are implanted, but if there are more healthy embryos, they are sometimes kept for future cycles. So what this policy is proposing is that we increase access for all people under 39 years of age to 3 full IVF cycles, which is a substantial increase to the current policy. And for people age 40, 41, and 42, we increase the access to 1 full cycle of IVF. And we are matching our proposal to the NICE guidance. Next slide, please. So intrauterine insemination is the process of introducing a healthy sperm into the womb of the person trying to conceive. And there are certain recommendations from NICE where intrauterine insemination is used. Examples are individuals having psychosexual problems or other physical problems, having a successful pregnancy via natural methods, and or individuals who are living with infections such as HIV, which would then determine the outcome of the treatment. And in those cases, intrauterine insemination can be used to use healthy sperm rather than sperm affected by any of these conditions. So the proposed policy, again, as I said, increases who is eligible for NHS funded intrauterine insemination and brings it in line with the NICE recommendations. So the proposed policy is to increase and fund up to 6 cycles of IUI for the following eligible couples, which are couples who are trying to get pregnant using donor insemination due to fertility problems, individuals with social, cultural, or religious objections to IVF, individuals with physical disability or psychosexual problems, and again, people with conditions, as I previously mentioned, living with HIV and similar. We are also proposing to reduce the number of unsuccessful cycles of IUI before we offer IVF. So we'll reduce these to 6 if the woman trying to get pregnant is 36 years or over. And out of these, 3 will still be funded by NHS if you are eligible. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So funding of assisted conception treatments using donor eggs or sperm. At the moment, the treatment that involves the donor eggs or sperm is on the NHS where eligible. However, the cost of the egg and sperm is actually borne by the individual getting the treatment. And there are several challenges that NHS faces on how to get around the actual availability of donor eggs and sperms, because there's a national shortage. There are issues with the availability of certain ethnic minority eggs and sperm. The fact that there are not a lot of NHS donor banks, whereas there are a lot of private banks that provide eggs and sperm. So there are all these challenges, as well as that our local NHS providers, they're not set up to actually deliver donor eggs and sperm related treatments. So we are now proposing that we pay for donor eggs and sperm and to bring our policy in line with the NICE guidance. However, given the challenges I've just stated, we are asking for your views and suggestions and feedback on how we could approach the funding of donor eggs and sperm. And we will then use your comments and feedback as our basis to work guidance around this. So the proposed policy is to increase funding to cover the cost of the donor sperms and eggs in people who are eligible, those meeting NICE criteria, and those couples trying to get pregnant using donor insemination who have fertility problems. Next slide, please. Fertility preservation is required by individuals who, for example, may be having certain treatments, including cancer treatment, which might mean that they will lose their fertility through that treatment, maybe a surgical procedure, or individuals who are suffering with certain genetic conditions, which mean that they're likely to get premature ovarian failure, which means that their ovaries will stop producing eggs earlier than what is naturally expected. So for those individuals, the preservation of eggs, sperms, and embryos has been available. We are now proposing to increase our provision for these individuals by increasing the length of time and meeting again the NICE guidance. So the proposed policy is to increase the storage of eggs, sperms, and embryos for people with conditions or who need a treatment that can cause infertility to 10 years for people up to 32 years of age, and for people, 10 years for people who are over 32 years of age, and for people under 32 years, we provide a facility for storing up until their 43rd birthday. Next slide, please. So ovarian reserve criteria. Ovarian reserve essentially means the expected amount of eggs that can potentially be produced by an individual's ovary. And there are certain tests, including imaging or scans or certain blood tests, which give an indication of how many eggs an ovary can potentially produce. Now, NICE guidelines recommend that for women or people trying to get pregnant 42 years, there should be no evidence of low ovarian reserve, which means that if you are 40, 41, or 42, your tests that determine how many eggs your ovaries will potentially produce should not be suboptimal. So our proposed policy here, it deviates a bit from NICE recommendation, and we are saying that the ovarian reserve criteria should be applicable to people of all ages. Now, this is because we have substantially increased the provision in this proposal elsewhere, and also because with the reduced ovarian reserve, the success of IVF does decline substantially. And so with the limited budgets we are making sure that this proposal provides treatments to people who are most likely to get pregnant, and therefore we are deviating from NICE's recommendation here. So to summarize ovarian reserve criteria, we are proposing that these are applicable to all individuals in all age groups who are seeking fertility treatment. Next slide, please. So this is the website where you'd find the details of our proposals, as well as changes that are being proposed and how they are different from the current existing policies. You have up until 22nd August to give us all your views. And that brings me to an end here, and welcome any questions. I'll hand over now to Alison.
Thank you, Anju. So yes, we go to the next slide. Thank you. So this just summarizes really how we're going to use your feedback. So any feedback that we've got during this engagement exercise will be analysed, and we'll produce an engagement report. This is going to be reviewed by the clinical review group who have drafted this policy. So alongside any other information to create that final policy, which we will then take to our NHS North East London board for decision in the autumn. And after that, we will of course be making sure that the policy is available to our residents and to any other stakeholders, GPs, clinicians, etc. That's effectively, we'll just be making sure that we take into account any comments that you give today, or if you give comments on the survey, or any other feedback that you give us, we will make sure that that's fed back